Are you proud of your Filipino supernatural heritage? Then wear it for the world to see. Visit our merchandise page at www.cafepress.com, keyword Pamanimation and Aswang. If you've ever traveled to the deep province while visiting the Philippines, far away from the city, driving on those obscure, winding roads that seem to stretch forever, connecting small towns and barrios that aren't even on the map, then you know exactly the kind of darkness I'm about to describe. By day, the province is made up of towns that border rice fields, forests, and beaches, open land expanses framed by rural sari-sari stores, roaring tricycles, and minibuses that ferry the small town folk back and forth to their destinations. Fresh air, chickens, and dogs with unusually curly tails play alongside the curb while farmers are busy tending their crops. But at night, these same roads become a bridge through the darkness, where the evenings are so dark that you can't tell where the horizon meets the sky. It's like swimming in an ocean where you can't see the bottom, except the abyss is just outside your window. You don't know what's staring back at you in the shadows, where the only source of light is your own car's headlights or that obscure home on the hill in the distance. Unless you're lucky enough to see another vehicle as lost as you are alone beneath the yawning sky, which is framed by towering coconut trees that you know whisper as you pass by. Heaven forbid your car breaks down next to a provincial cemetery. Meet Ernesto, a farmhand who's just coming home after a hard day spent harvesting in a rice field several barrios away. A long shift led to a long ride home, and after enduring the morning chill and the blistering midday heat, he was ready to call it a day. He caught the last possible minibus to drop him off the outskirts of his barrio, where the normally bustling streets had grown quiet against the crickets chirping in the brush. Gone were the impromptu card games on the corner, passers-by gossiping while traveling on foot, as well as the makeshift vendors selling their snacks. Without vehicles rumbling across the pavement, the main road was nothing more than a barren walkway that cut straight through his town, flanked by two-story homes that became nothing more than shadows that stretched beyond his peripheral view. Ernesto was born in this town. He knew everyone who lived in it. At least, he thought he did. You shouldn't be Strolling down the center of the road, he then turned right to the street that led to his shanty home. No doubt, his wife and children were already asleep, and although he needed to go back to work again early in the morning, he relished this brief moment of respite before starting another hard day of low pay. He saw a figure in the distance, several dozen meters ahead of him. Although it was dark, he could tell this woman, the buxom frame and the long flowing hair, was attractive. Unfortunately, she was walking away from him, all alone in the dark. Ernesto knew that if he called out her name from that distance, he may wake some of his neighbors and call attention to himself. He quickened his pace and got within decent earshot. Hey, what's your name? Are you lost? I don't think I've seen you around before. Would you like to play? But the woman kept walking without turning her head. Ernesto smiled, recognizing a challenge. Are you being rude? It's just me, Ernie. Do you live around here? Can I walk you home? He whispered as loudly as he could. Upon passing a fallen tree on the side of the road, The woman suddenly paused, then casually sat down, leaning to one side in an alluring pose. Ernesto took it as a good sign, then approached with a swagger. "I bet the view in front's much better than the rear," he said. "Why don't you turn around, beautiful, and show me your pretty face?"
I told you not to
The
come.
woman finally turned her head to the side, ever so slightly. Ernesto looked around to make sure no one was in sight, then stood right behind her. Her long, jet black hair fell down her back like a waterfall, the lines shimmering in the dim light. "Come on now, don't make me beg." The woman sat straight, and just as Ernesto rested his hand on her right shoulder, the woman slowly twisted around and stood up to face him.
Now it's too late.
Ernesto screamed when he saw the woman's face was a tattered mound of rotting flesh, fed upon by maggots squirming between the contours of her brow and cheekbones. She opened her mouth to smile, and he saw the muscles and sinews of her jaws pull back, revealing teeth that were well beneath her receded gum line, with one eye receded in its socket and the other protruding to one side. She extended her arms forward, as if to embrace him with all her might. He winced and pulled back, wheeling around and instinctively sprinting in the direction of his house. He looked over his shoulder in mid-step and gasped when he saw the woman was in pursuit, her feet elevated above the ground as she strode forward in slow motion. In the dim light, the woman was floating towards him. He arrived at his house and pounded on the door. He fell in just as his wife swung it open, and he immediately locked it behind him. He cowered in a corner well into morning, and it wasn't until it was fully daylight was he able to leave his home and tell his wary neighbors of the ghostly woman that nearly scared him to death. Beneath the bustling provincial traffic, however, any trace of the spirit had vanished. If you're enjoying the content that we've provided, please show your support. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Thank you. Would you like to learn more about the Asian and Pacific Islanders supernatural? Then please pick up Alex Pauman's books, Filipino Ghost Stories from Tuttle Publishing, and Asian Supernatural, including Hawaii and the Pacific, from Mutual Publishing. Both are available from their respective publishers or from Amazon.com.